So we're going to go ahead and start with the public hearing first. There was some confusion on what time. We should have actually started the public hearing around 6:30, and then the regular meeting should start on the regular time, 7 o'clock. But since it went out, that everything is starting at 7. We're going to go ahead and start with the public hearing first. The public hearing is to discuss the tax rate, which, as we discussed at the last city council meeting, we are going to be moving forward with the voter approved tax rate. And we'll give anybody, you guys that are here, an opportunity to make comments, or if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to step in. I'm going to allow Sal to kind of talk a little bit about the tax rate and what it looks like for this coming year. Go ahead, sir.
So just as a brief overview, Mayor, to kick everything off, this budget will raise more revenue for property taxes than last year's budget by an amount of $38,041, which is a 4.6% increase from last year's budget. The property tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax rolls this year is $22,658.
What was that again? That's total?
The last total, sir, $22,658.
And that's under the increase.
Right. And for clarification, everyone, this is just a hearing for the public to give input on that rate, that increase, and the tax rate will be approved or accepted September 10th. That's when we have that's right. That's when council will be voting on that.
So I know last year we had a lot of input from the community because we were considering going with a higher tax rate, which was the de minimis. Because the community was able to raise the signatures needed to put it on the ballot, we chose to make some budget cuts and go with the last year was also the voter approved rate. Actually, this year's budget is this year's tax rate is going to be a little bit lower, if I understand that. I'll let you guys answer.
Well, basically, the tax rate is a function of the total value that's in the approved tax roll as determined by the San Patricia County Appraisal District. And each property is eligible for certain exemptions and reductions if it is owner occupied. The homestead exemption is one that I think most people are familiar with, along with the over 65 freeze. There was quite a bit of activity this year with regards to those exemptions because the legislature granted a much higher level of exemptions, particularly for the schools taxes. One thing that's important for citizens to recognize is that the appraisal district merely inventories and sets the valuation of the properties. It is up to each of the jurisdictions in which a property is located to set the tax rates. When you get your tax bill in October, there are multiple tax rates that go into your total tax bill, whether it's the county, whether it's the school, whether it's the drainage district, whether it's the emergency management district, if there is one, and last but not least is the city. And so the city's tax rate is approximately last year it was about 54 cents out of the $2.30 some odd cents in total taxes that had been assessed. This year, because of the increased valuations for individual properties as well as the tax roll itself, the tax rate being recommended and considered by the council is somewhat less on a per $100 basis. And so based upon that, The council made a preliminary recommendation to the city administrator and myself as we were working to prepare the budget to use the voter-approved tax rate. The voter-approved tax rate is the rate which is allowed by statute for an increase equal to 3.5% of the total tax dollars generated in the previous year. Now, because of the way the math works and the devil's in the details, that sometimes that tax rate can seem a lot higher. And this year, for this entity, the tax rate is actually slightly less. Another reason why the tax rate is slightly less is because the voter-approved tax rate does not limit a change for debt issues. And because of the payments that have been made by the city loan at this time is almost debt-free. You have $60,000 of debt, which is left in 2 or 3 annual payments of $20,000 to the Texas Water Development Board. Now, that's not a lot of money, but according to the payment schedule, not only do you have the obligation of making payments, you have the obligation of making or providing an annual audit. The annual audits of the city are delinquent, and that is inhibiting the city's efforts in certain regards going forward. But we'll get into that when we talk more about the budget. So the tax rate applied to the total tax roll and help me, let me know if I need, how big I need to make these things. You didn't tell me there was a test, Mayor. Testing, testing. All right, so your tax roll this year is $162 million. And what is being proposed for consideration is a tax rate that is 0.00068272 for debt service, as well as a 0.525733 for a total tax rate of 0.532605. As summarized by the city administrator, that's approximately $38,000 more in total tax revenue dollars, of which $22,000 comes from new properties that were added to the tax rolls. Somebody built a house, somebody remodeled, a new business came to town. Those are new properties, and they don't count against your 3.5% increase. At this point, what typically happens, Mayor, is that the podium is opened to the audience and members of the community for those speaking first in favor and then those speaking against.
So do you guys, anybody out there would like to comment? You're welcome to come up to the mic, whether you are for or against the new tax rate. Obviously, most of y'all know that the taxes that the city collects, that's what they use. This is what we use to run the day-to-day operations of the city. And based on the tax rate that's approved by the council, myself and the city administrator are responsible for making sure that we stay within those budgets. So it's very important for us to try to get the best numbers available. And as you can see, we've got some good numbers, and we'll be able to. I think we're going to be able to get through this next year just as well as we did this year. So if we don't have anyone to make any comments, go ahead. Just.
Paul, can you go back to the scale of the M&O? Is that gonna go down next year?
From the prior year?
Mm-hmm. Are we gonna pay some bills off? Is that gonna go down, or is that gonna go up, or?
Well, you do have one debt that comes off after this next year, and that's a street sweeper for $25,000. We did have conversations today with regards to Government Capital Finance Corporation. in connection with the possibility of trying to finance a meter program. The slide that is on the screen shows the expenditures by function over the last several years. I will point out that fiscal year 2018 is not reflected on the graph because that's the year when the city changed from a calendar year fiscal year to the fiscal year ending September 30th. So for 2018, there were only 9 months of expenses, and I was trying to keep year-to-year comparisons for the charts so that it wasn't unduly confusing.
So there are no public comments. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this time.
$7.10.
At 7:10.
17. So we're gonna go ahead and move forward with our regular meeting. I'm gonna declare a quorum here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God.
Again, thank you for being here. And if you do need to take a phone call or a text message, please step outside and you're welcome to come back in anytime. At this time, any conflicts of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with items on this agenda shall be declared at this time. I don't believe there are any, so we'll move forward to item D. Any public comments? Sal, anybody sign up for public comments? No? So we will move on to Roman numeral 3, discussion and action items to be considered, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the minutes for the special call meeting held on August 10th and the special call meeting and budget workshop meeting held on August 27th. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the special call meetings on August 10th and the budget.
I have a motion by Councilman Falcon, second by Councilman Dominguez to approve the minutes of the special call meeting held on August 10th and the special call meeting and budget workshop meeting held on August 27th. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll move forward with the vote. Place 1?
Yes.
Place 2? Place 3?
Yes.
Place 4? Place 5? Motion carries. Item B, discuss, consider, and take action to adopt the proposed 24-25 annual city budget with a record vote being required. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we just put on the table for discussion.
I have a motion by Councilman Falcon for discussion only. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Councilman Dominguez.
So what does this mean?
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So this is basically the second draft from what y'all received last time. I just, for the sake of time, I want to just go over the differences between the last draft and the new and this current draft. To begin with, if you'll go to page 8. So on page 8, the difference between the last draft and this draft are, you'll see a summary that was requested by Councilman Dominguez in regards to the difference in the budget for the last two couple fiscal years. That's what those summaries are to the right. We removed the 24,000 for the ambulance because now that's up in the air.
I'm sorry, where are you at again?
On page 8 of the budget book.
Is that, okay, okay.
Yes.
For the EMS.
Okay.
And then we had to reduce the council contingency from 5% to 3%.
And was that to kind of just make sure the budget balanced?
To balance
Okay.
the budget.
Yes, sir. The prior draft had included $24,000 of ambulance fees, which were originally thought as a way to pay for the increased ambulance contract. Unfortunately, because of the type of city which Odom falls under legislatively, it's not allowed to do so. That type of thing is considered a tax for a
Okay.
common law city
But you've added the increase in the budget, correct?
for the expense.
For the expense, even though that doesn't mean we're going to go with them,
Right.
just on as a secure.
Yes, sir. They
Level.
provided a preliminary estimate of what the increase would be, and we used that increase. You might recall at the last meeting, they had come back with an additional increase. We have not reflected that additional increase in this budget.
Okay. So where did you get the 24,000 from?
I took it from line council contingency 5%. You'll now see that the council contingency is 3%.
Okay.
And for clarifications, the numbers that are on the far right side
Mm-hmm.
represent the change from this year's budget to the proposed budget for the next year.
Right. Okay.
Correct. Now, we're gonna have another budget workshop, or this is it?
The intent is for this to be it. The way the tax rate setting process works, council must first adopt the budget. And then within X number of days of that, after that, and after a public hearing concerning the tax rate, the council can then set the tax rate. to fund the budget. In
I
other words,
thought we had
you
till
determine-
October
you-
1st.
You determine how you're going to, what monies you're going to spend, and then you raise the money to cover it. October 1st is when the bills are normally already in hand by the taxpayers. The tax office needs like a week and a half prior to that date to
Okay.
get those bills printed and out.
Okay.
When we set the budget calendar, one of the very first meetings that we had, we came up with those dates
Okay.
of August 10, August 24, August 3rd, and then next Tuesday, September 10th, to adopt the tax rate. There actually could be another meeting between then and whatever the cutoff date of the tax office is. Right now, I don't know what that cutoff date is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I personally don't think we're ready for it. I would want to see the ambulance proposal. I mean, maybe we can find somebody that would be a lot lower, we don't know. I know that the next item is also permits and inspection fees. We should have covered that on the budget workshop. You know, we set the water and sewer volume rates and all that.
We did the water and sewer, but we didn't do the permits, right?
Right. Where you do the
Well,
park
Yeah, yeah.
fees and everything.
We didn't see that.
Yeah, the permit fees are small numbers that aren't really going to affect our overall budget that much over the next year, just like last year. Those fees really don't affect the overall budget as much as, you would think. That's why we're trying to stay with some of the bigger numbers. The most important thing about here is being able to get this information back to the tax assessor, collector, trying to get them that we've already approved the tax rate. And the only way to approve the tax rate is if we approve the budget. So we can go back to them and say, hey, we've approved the budget with this tax rate, and they can start printing the bills out for this next year. So that's why we're kind of trying to get this done early. And of course, the budget takes effect on October 1st is when the new budget takes effect. So we have till the end of September. But again, like Mr. Bain just indicated, we need to have this information into the tax assessors so they can start printing out the tax bills with the rate that we're going to be approving.
And if I might, the setting of the tax rate to fund a budget does not mean that you cannot amend the budget subsequent to setting the tax rate. It is usually best to, as previously indicated, adopt your expenditures before you set your tax rates, so it doesn't look like you're trying to spend what you have. With regards to the fee schedules, last year, as part of the budget process, the fee schedule, Exhibit 1, was attached because I could not find, and no one at City Hall could find, when the last time the various fees had been adjusted by vote of the council. Last year, we had adjusted the utility rates and we adjusted the garbage rates. And you can look at the schedules on the approved budget and you can see where those numbers were struck through and the new amounts as set by council were provided, with the intent being there was now a fee schedule as approved and ratified by the city council. It's my understanding that there are certain line items, whether it's a fencing permit fee or other fees like that, that have been changed since last year. Those changes are reflected in the exhibit that was provided for the fees this coming year, although the total revenue from each of those fees I have not evaluated.
Who made those changes? Because usually the council decides.
That's correct. And that's the reason why we're trying to get to a more formal approach with regards to the fee schedule, to make sure that it is based upon an action voted on by council.
The,
We
if,
did didn't we do some changes on this? I think we did. We did a little. If you click on feedback, nobody was happy with it, so it was like,
the inspections changed when Kenny our contracted Kenny Gaia, whenever he was brought in, those were his rates, and we started that. I think it was brought in before I started, but those are the rates that he was using. So those weren't recorded in the schedule. And I think one of my first meetings with y'all was going over that information as far as what he was going to be doing and the costs and stuff. So it just wasn't made part of that.
Rates were brought before council.
Not officially.
Right.
It was.
But
It
they
was.
should.
It was. Yes.
It's part of the
Yeah,
budget.
and I think that's what we're trying to do right now.
Right.
is-
Right. And this is how we should do it going forward. You know. So.
you had good intentions.
Yeah. Like it was $20 at one point, and we went to 75. It's at the end of. I don't know where. I had to step out for a second. I don't know how far y'all went.
If you will, and turn to your budget draft after page 46 is the beginning of the materials pertaining to the fee schedule. First, it is the proposed ordinance that will be adopted as once the whole budget is adopted, and then beginning on page 1 of the schedule, you will see Chapter 6, amusements and entertainments. And at this point, I'll defer to the city administrator to walk you through the changes. I think the first change is on page 2 of that.
Page 2.
Page 2 of the schedule. So it should be your last tab. So that last tab. Then you have the page 1 and page 2 of the schedule fee. You'll see Under electrical inspection commercial, it was $20 and we went to 75.
Okay, on this, I can remember, this is after Chief Ochoa, who was doing the inspections at the time, when he retired, we had to bring in a contractor to do the inspections because we had builders. The contractor's fee was $75 per required inspection. So we were charging 20. So just in order to be able to make up the difference, that's why we were charging $75. It was just to cover the cost of the new inspector because that was what he was charging us. But no, it wasn't ever, I think there was just a discussion about not just this fees, but all the other fees as well, but it was never brought up to council. It was just a adjustment that was made to be able to pay the inspector to get the inspections done without it affecting the overall.
We did the water source.
Yeah. The water and sewer was taken care of last year.
The water and sewer fees start on page 3 of the fee schedule. And you'll see the prior fee plus the struck through with the new fee next to it.
So, I'm sorry. Do you have anything? Let's go ahead and move forward. If council has questions, we'll.
Okay. Well, I mean,
I do have a question.
sure.
So on that very first page, you have 142,970 you're asking for the court
What page are you looking at, sir?
on page 8.
Of the budget?
Yeah, the budget.
One second.
142,970.
You think we're gonna need that much on them?
Well, based upon what is recorded in your system through June 30th, even though your budget for this year is 143, you have 170 of disbursements recorded. And if we go and look at the detail of what is in that budget, there is one employee, there is a judge.
What page are you on, Mr. Bain?
He's on the summary page of page 8. That's right.
And actually I've moved to the detail.
But what's the judge gonna be doing without the police?
Well, the initial thought is that she's going to work with Epi to get all these backlogged taken care of. That's going to take some time. See about what we're going to be able to collect, what we can't, work with Linebarger. And then after that, we're hoping to get something going with code enforcement. Mayor found some information about that. Right, but there's a way to do it without that code enforcement officer. Like, for example, if I were to have time, I could go out, issue certified warnings, and then the city can actually file like a case at the court, and then it picks up from there. As long as we're warning and then issuing final warning, with just letters, then the city can file, and then once we kind of get that down, then we can start rolling and getting people accountable for code violations.
We don't need a licensed police officer to be a code enforcer. We can have either the city administrator or another city employee go out, leave notices. If somebody has violated a code, we can go and leave a notice, follow up with a second and third notice, and then if they don't correct the problem, then we file it with the court, and then the judge will subpoena the person and bring them into court, and then issue the fine if there is a fine associated with
Planning
it.
on hiring a code enforcer, did you put that in the budget?
No,
Well,
no,
You didn't put it in the budget?
no, it would be, like I said, for the time being, to just save money. It could be me, it could be the mayor, it could be a councilman, it could be another employee. It's just whoever,
So you're not hiring a code enforcer?
right.
Is that
We're-
true? Can you do it that way? I've never heard of that. I mean, I've always, whenever, even when we contracted the sheriff's office, we were changing all ordinances to read law enforcement officer. So can you look
Yeah.
into that?
Yeah, I'll look into that. But I think Shal asked me about that, and I looked into it, and I think he's correct. But I've got the information in my office, and I'll review it.
The code enforcer is not going to be issuing citations.
Well, you can't.
know, it's
Yeah.
not, they're not going to, all they're going to do is they're going to go and leave a warning to the individual that we'll have a template where we'll leave a warning at the individual's home, the resident's home. Then we may mail out a letter for a second, violation if they're still haven't corrected the problem. Then we may send out a certified letter to them on a third if they haven't corrected it on the third time. If they still haven't corrected it, then we'll file the case with the judge, who the judge will subpoena that individual to court and then issue any fines that are associated with that ordinance violation.
And
So-
I think the issue at the end of it was that our ordinance said it only mentioned code enforcement officer, and they were law enforcement officers. That's why it doesn't apply to us. We gotta change it to include law enforcement. Now we can do that. So that was the issue back then.
So there's a code and officer, and there's code
Right.
enforcer.
Right.
Enforcer is the law guy. Officers don't have to be, don't have to be law.
Yeah.
It can be just a regular guy. So the word is gotta, that change word said officer.
And this is
I don't
just,
know which one it is. It's that one or the other one.
The enforcer is a law enforcement.
Okay.
The officer just guy.
Anybody?
and this is just to get us started. I mean, we need to get back on track with that. So even if it's temporary and maybe 6 months from now, we're doing a lot better, we can start looking at amending the budget like Mr. Bain said. But I think we have to do something to get that started. And I think we're moving in the right direction, but I mean, this would be the first step. So.
And recognizing that the court and the interplay with the PD has had the history that it's had as part of the budget preparation, I did go and look at the collections of the court as recorded in the Encode system. And I have to point out that that's different than the Fundware system, which the court uses to track citations and its docket. And within the Encode system for fiscal year 1920, the amounts recorded, and I believe these are gross, including not only what the state gets, or not only what the city gets, but what the state got. The total collections were 356,000. The next year in 2021, the recorded collections were 323,000, down approximately 30,000. The next year in 2022, the amounts recorded were $160,000, half of what they had been the year before. And then in 2023, while we were first discussing the possibilities of reducing the staffing of PD, the recorded collections were 138,000. Through August of this year, what has been recorded for court collections is $55,000. I went to the clerk who manages the docket. I believe, well, we don't need specific names, and visited with her and was able to reconcile that, yes, in her system, those were what funds she had received and deposited into the bank. So the revenue stream from court has dropped off significantly from what it was 4 years ago. When I asked her what the total amount of outstanding fines and citations were, she ran a report and told me that it was approximately $525,000. It just so happened that a representative from the Linebarger firm was in City Hall working on some of the things that you've previously contracted with. And I asked them if they would please put a proposal together for the city administrator to consider about trying to collect that $550,000. That $500,000, for all I know, is 10 years old. I don't know. I didn't evaluate it. That's kind of beyond the scope of trying to help you with your budget.
How much actual revenue was collected, you know?
I do not.
You don't know.
I know that the total collections, which presumably is probably more than half owed to the state, was 55,000 from October 1 through August 27th.
I mean, I'm just saying, we took out the main source of all that, I believe. Because it's police department budget is only 40,000, and I believe that's for the bills, the electricity.
You have continuing contracts for communication equipment, et cetera.
And I understand all that, but
Mhm.
I think that 142 might be inflated a little bit. I don't know.
Well, I think that,
I'll go by what.
I think they still have that employee that falls under them, the clerk still falls under them, and the clerks.
Should that clerk fall under the court?
I've asked in the past, even last year, even last year's budget, I asked that she be moved to administration. She was slower. I wanted to move her to administration only because I didn't feel that between our budget I didn't feel that it was city best interest to have a contract person overseeing a city employee. So putting them under the administration, that would allow the city administrator at the time to kind of manage that person's, day-to-day operations and use them. But, it's still in the same position, so I don't know.
I mean, you could, it's a matter of taste, because if you can get, I like that it's under administration, so you can manage, because the problem we have right now is that the total funds that are there, we don't know how much of that is tech or security or for juvenile safety. This is what we're gonna need to dive in with the judge, to go in deeper. That's the part that I was skeptical, because there's a small percentage of that money that can be used for general use. Everything else has very specific use,
Yeah.
and that's what we have trouble getting a grasp on. Another reason it might seem a little inflated. I would kind of say that I think it's okay and probably a little cushier in the sense of we're going to need more training. There's going to be a whole lot because our current court clerk doesn't have the amount of training that she needs. More certifications, more classes, that sort of stuff, just to get her up to par. That been lacking for a while. So I mean, and again, worst case, if we see, maybe 6 or 8 months down the line, we can shift that money to something else.
Okay.
With approval, of course.
Okay.
I don't remember us talking on page 5. We look on, I guess y'all decided on raising these rates on the gallons.
Page
We
5.
talked about whenever they go up on us, then we're gonna go, not do a pass-through,
Oh.
but go like 25 cents more. So I guess y'all did this on your own, and it's almost like $5.
We discussed that in the budget.
Yeah,
I think we did.
the pass
I thought we were gonna wait when they did a pass-through, the San Pedro Municipal Water District.
But there, last year by policy, council approved an automatic pass-through. When we got word of the 25 cents that they intend to charge, that very first draft of the budget showed about a 7.1% increase. The next draft, with the input of the city administrator and the mayor, showed a 10% increase. And that's what you see there. And as part of that process, at the last meeting, we went through and compared the billings for the city of Odom to about 9 other communities, if you remember that chart.
Yeah, you showed us a chart, but
Right.
again, this decision-making was not done by council.
So the pass-through was at 7%, and then our pass-through to our customer was 10?
An additional 3, for a total of 10.
But people are gonna frown when they see their bill.
Well, the thing is
A
that
resident's $34 is gonna go to $38.16.
the water rates hadn't been adjusted for over 5 years. So now we're trying to catch up, but without doing it all at one time. We didn't do it last year, but if the county increases our rates by 7%, even if the county did not increase our rates, we would still have to increase ours because we're behind right now. because of the utility fund is not, it should be, offsetting itself, but it's not. We're kind of in the hole every year because for 5 years, the rates were never adjusted. That the city would get an increase, but it wasn't passed on to the customer.
Well, I don't
So-
think it was 5 years, I think it was only one.
Yeah.
No, I think we-
Was five?
did
I
it
think we
3
looked-
years ago.
I think we looked in
No, we
several
did it
years.
3 years ago, we did remember a $5 increase across the board, or $6. So we did do an increase.
3 years ago would have been 2021, 22. And for that year, based upon what's recorded, your recorded expenses exceeded your revenues by $169,000.
So we're
In addition to that, as part of this year's proposed expenditures, there's been mention made of the need for a meter replacement program. On a straight up, heads up basis, that meter replacement program is more than $7 per month per customer. As drafted, we have not had to increase the budgets to cover the cost of the meters. We have been able to adjust the maintenance and repair cost sections, and perhaps it would be a good time to talk about that because it's the biggest part of the variable expenses of the utility system on an annualized basis. This past year,
It's on page 30, right?
I believe it is.
Page 30 would be your second tab.
Go ahead, keep talking.
And it should read, so what you'll see there is from water repair, we reduced it 20,000, and sewer repair reduced by 100,000. And then we created a line item under other for meter department replacement, and that's the 120 that we're budgeting for to cover the yearly
Per
payment
year of an 8-year project.
right, for the water meters.
Yeah, but. And I'm going by what y'all are telling us. Y'all told us we couldn't afford a police department.
How do you find that money? I mean, you made adjustments to come up with that. How much was it for that water system?
By reducing other water system expenses. One of the premises with regards to providing services is that those services are paid for by the users of those services. Unfortunately, the utility system has not been covering its cost for many years. And even with this, the changes that have been made, you still have a ways to go towards covering your utility system cost. All of your city employees who work on the utility system are actually sitting in your general fund. Your utility expenses are understated by the cost of those employees. As an example, I understand your question and concerns and appreciate your drilling into the details. But if you're going to drill into the details to that extent, you have to take into consideration all of the details. And so I can sit here with all honesty and tell you, based upon what is recorded in your accounting system, your utility system has been in a deficit for about 8 years, each year. And it's not that we took money away from one to the other. Within the utility system, Fund 2, you'll see that on page, you said 30?
30.
You'll see on page 30 that total repairs for this year were budgeted at $438,000. Because of staffing issues and things of that nature, you've only spent 160. That means there should be savings in there, which we are considering to be your down payment for your $800,000 meter system. For the next year, originally, we had budgeted the same $438,000 as budgeted for this year. We took $120,000 of that and put it on a designated line item to cover 1 year of an 8-year program.
No, but I mean by us getting involved in some of these changes, like on page 4, it's already time for us to go up on the water tap fees. It's been $750 for a long time. Outside, city is $1,500. Rent-con charges like 3,500. If it's on the same side, if the meter's on that side, it's 3,500. If it's across the street, then they charge like 4,700.
We had quite a bit of discussion about whether or not to get into the detail regarding Exhibit 1 for all of the different levels of the city's fees. However, if we try to remember that as part of the budget process, we're trying to work on the larger numbers first. Most of these line items are not going to register on your graph that shows revenues versus expenses. And because the relative amount of dollar in your budget generated by these fees is frankly not significant, the decision was made today to go ahead and put this schedule into this draft.
And you're saying, what's the percentage you're going up on water?
10%?
Yeah. It's 10, yeah. I just wanted to, because that's kind of, I mean, there's, like we always said, Isaac, I mean, back in the day, where some of the elderly that can barely afford it.
Well, there's a 7% increase from Sampat County. And then you're looking at the previous years that it was showing out there, that was the increase or lack of increases that had not been passed through in the past. We're still trying to catch up
When
with
is
that.
Sampat going up 7%?
Takes effect January 1st.
That's correct.
Mayor, I'd like to just table this and just have another special call meeting to iron all this stuff out.
As
With the,
to,
are you talking about the budget or are you
No,
talking
no, this
about the
one.
fees?
This line item B, because we have a lot of discussion still. I mean, we should be in a special call meeting doing all this, the budget.
I'm sorry,
Well-
please clarify. Is your suggestion to table the changes to the fee schedule,
No, just table,
the whole process?
I'll second it. So we can go back and then there's some items that we can still increase, don't get me wrong. I mean, like I said,
On the fees, we can increase the fees
Any time of year?
anytime we want. I mean, we can sit down and have a workshop on Saturday to
Yeah,
go
but-
over this if we want.
but
We're
the
talking
public-
about the
the
budget.
public needs to know that. Every year, the public would always know how much water we're going up. Now they're gonna get, if we approve it, they're gonna get a bill of $4 or $5 more. Some of them are on a fixed income, they're gonna say, "I got $5 more." And then if they go over the 3,000 gallons, then it's a little bit more. That's what they're gonna say. And they didn't get to see it, they're just gonna say, well, the council passed the budget, but they need to be made aware that we're gonna go up, not just, you know, we've always done it like that, if y'all recall.
Go ahead, Ms. Amanda.
I just wanted to also point out, at the workshop, y'all discussed the water was one increase and y'all are also going up on the garbage, which was a total of 16%, which would be now 19% because y'all increased it by 3% from the 7 and the 8%.
I'm sorry, but you can't simply add up the
I know
percentages.
that's what you told me last time, but
Okay.
as a total utility charge, the people would see a total of,
Not,
because we're gonna go up on our, we pay water and garbage, Mr. Gaines, so
And,
I
both of them
understand.
And
are
also
gonna
to
go
answer-
up.
Oh, hold on.
well, keep in mind the sewer as well, so that's 3 items
Well,
that you're gonna see.
The sewer won't be going up. I don't think there's an increase in the sewer service. It's just the garbage and water. Go ahead, Mr. Bain.
I'm not sure which issue
Where'd
to
it go?
move forward with.
Where'd it go with this, right?
Well, I mean, I understand the concern about raising the fees because it affects all of us, even us sitting up here. But last year we discussed raising the fees and trying to catch up, and we agreed that it wasn't a good idea to raise the past years all at one time, that we would do it a little bit at a time so we could get caught back up. So unfortunately, the county has already added, if the county wasn't adding the 7%, we would still be looking at a 3% increase to the water bill this year without the additional 7. The only reason that the additional 7 is there is because the county's adding, increasing the rates to us by 7%. So we have to pass that on to the customer. Now, in the past, the council members have chosen not to increase the rates. And as you can see, by the information that was up there, every year, I mean, in 2022, 2023, there was a deficit of $639,000. They had to go and cash out CDs to pay for the water projects that they had. The year before that, 21, 22, it was 169,000. Even going back even further, there were still deficits in the system utility fund. So we can't continue to run the city if we're going to continue to have deficits, because those deficits carry over year in and year out. So at some point, we have to make the decision, or the council has to make the decision to, well, this is a recommendation. It's not So this is a recommendation that was brought up at the last meeting that we had. This was the city administrator's recommendation to the council. And at that point, that's when the council had an opportunity to share your input, because it is his recommendation to the city. It's not my recommendation. Him and I have talked. Our last workshop, we had 2 weeks available for council members to go and sit down with the city administrator and with the financial advisor and go through numbers and share your input. No one, I guess there was a couple of council members who did take advantage of that opportunity. Now we have to go ahead and put the brakes on all this, because now there's council members want to have some more input, but the opportunity for input has been there. We've been working on this for a month already.
Not the schedule fee.
No, not the schedule fees. I'm not talking about the fees. I'm talking about the
We're all
budget.
talking about schedule
That's a
fees.
different thing. No, Billy's talking about the budget. I'm not talking
No, I
about the
think he's talking
fees.
about schedule fees.
The fees, we can meet anytime on the fees. We're talking about going through and voting on the budget.
Yeah, we're gonna see a $10 increase on the residential. $10 increase. That's what you're gonna see. And again,
Go ahead.
On that budget, they don't wanna raise the water, the garbage, and sewer. You gotta keep up. Fine, but y'all need, and if y'all look, that's the whole city of Odenton here. But tomorrow morning, I guarantee you, in the cafe, they're gonna be complaining that they went up on the sewer, they went up on the water, they went up on the garbage. And they wanna put the input, they're afraid to come and speak to y'all. So raising the money, the sewer and the water that much at one time, it's gonna hurt the people. And then, the fixed income of old people. And I know y'all cannot cover, this is no income, this is not income, this is not that, y'all can't do that. But y'all need to let the public know and come on in the media, tell them, before y'all raise.
Well, I think we've had several meetings and several workshops where we've discussed the increases. So, in the end, the council has to decide whether they're going to do the increases or not. This is a recommendation. This is the recommendation based on, from our city administrator, based on the previous numbers, because our system utility fund.
If you look, it's the same people all the sometimes in the city council meeting. But the other people that are out there, they complain, and I hear it because.
Oh, I understand, and I have a Facebook page, and that's what the Facebook page is there for. So people can reach out to me and give me their input, so I know what to bring to the table for the council. And so I understand the concern, don't get me wrong, because this is gonna affect all of us. But at some point, the decision is going to have to be made that we're going to have to raise the water rates. And how much, again, it's up to the council. This is a recommendation from the city administrator after working with our financial advisor that we, of course, we do the pass through, but we also do the 3% increase on the water to try to catch up with the previous years that there was no increase. You know, so we're still sitting at a deficit in the system utility fund. And again, like we discussed earlier, there are some employees that are the water, they work the water department for the city, but they're under miscellaneous. They're not under the water, their pay doesn't come out of the system fund. And if it did, then you would see bigger deficits there. Now, we have a motion to table.
Well, people don't know, like they are raising taxes, the first thing they'll say, well, the city council and the mayor raising the taxes and the water, garbage, and the sewer, but look at the streets, around and stuff, they don't know that that's.
Mayor, if I can, just one more
Hold on,
clarification.
let's Mr. Falcone, go ahead.
Well, I wonder if we could do this. Can we approve this, pending, schedule fees?
You can approve your budget
But we
and
gotta
not include,
No, you still have time.
Not to include this?
October, you're still a month away.
I'm just asking.
you're 2 to 3 weeks away at most,
There's cities that have gone weeks after. You know.
and incurred additional printing fees for their tax bills. And on the issue of water and wastewater rates, at a meeting here, we reviewed this chart, which was compiled more than a year ago for another city as they were considering whether or not to issue a bond to build a new wastewater treatment plant. As we worked on the budget draft, we evaluated where the city of Oden's bills are relative to other organizations. If you will look at the wastewater, the middle columns, you will see that the city of Odom's $27 does not matter what your consumption is. And that's because the city of Odom's rate structure does not have a volumetric component to it for sewer. So if you have a customer who uses 3,000 gallons, they are paying the same sewer bill as someone who has 15 or 20,000 gallons of consumption. There are many aspects of your rate structure and your fee schedule which need to be evaluated. When we went through the process of calculating what the fee increase would be, as proposed, the fee for a 5,000 gallon bill would be $45. $45 on this schedule would put you right about there, recognizing that all of these entities raised their fees after this was prepared and are considering additional increases now. For a 10,000 gallon bill, the bill would come out to $72.
Mr. Bailey, you did discuss all this, but.
Yeah,
We're looking at other things that were not discussed.
With
That's.
with regards,
We talked all about that. That's
We
perfect.
talked about.
All that was perfect, but.
But we never said it was gonna be $10 across.
Yeah, you did talk about that, don't get me wrong. You explained it very well, but there's other things here that are not explained.
So,
as to fees charged by the city.
so just for clarification, you can pass the budget, but you don't have to pass the fee schedule. That can come, you can fix that. Is the actual fee, the fees, right?
Permit and inspection fees. So we can table that, and discuss those fees
The fees drive portions of the budget, in some situations greater than in others. The most significant has to do with your water, sewer, and garbage revenue. That's the most significant part of your revenue, besides your ad valorem taxes. In fact, they might even be more than your ad valorem taxes. So yes, knowing how much you're going to charge is an integral part. In order, part of the difficulty has to do with preparing materials for consideration. For instance, what you had before you was the same thing you had before you last week, with the exception of removing ambulance revenue of $4,000 and reallocating utility $120,000 to cover a meter program, which has been identified as a high priority, considering 200 of your customers don't have meters that function.
Right, but also, as I'm taking this back at home and you read it, we do a lot of contract, business, and there's nothing in the contracts in the budget for items, for services just themselves. It's a zero, where's that money coming from?
Going forward, no, I did not put myself in your budget. For this year, I am in your budget based upon the fact that you have vacancies in certain positions, and that is how the city administrator and the mayor are covering my contract.
But it should be under contract, is that not correct?
It would be recorded there from the budget reallocated.
Which is a budget of zero right now.
The budget for the city administrator, which was vacant for, I don't know how many months, 5 or 6 months.
Should be a line item.
Well,
Do it right.
And then it would just be a budget amendment.
That is absolutely correct, but it has not been the practice of this community to have budget amendments. By way of example, when the TWIA and TML insurance policies, which had been budgeted for $60,000, were renewed by the city administrator and the mayor for $130,000. And after looking at the minutes, there was no reference, there was no communication in the file whatsoever about that increase. And yet it happened. You then revise what you said.
Well, it hasn't been approved yet. So it hasn't been approved yet, so.
So people can come and talk about it, hey, we don't want that. You do it before.
Well, yeah, we didn't do that last year either. So it's strange that you're bringing it up now when we didn't do it last year. It wasn't brought up last year either. So we have a motion to table. Go ahead. So I have a motion by Councilman Falcon to table, second by Councilman Dominguez. If there's any more discussion. I'm sorry, Councilman Huerta. Second by Councilman Huerta. If there's any more discussion, we'll move on with a vote to table. Place 1, place 2, place 3, place 4, place 5. That the discussion and the next item C is also part of, the discussion involving the budget.
I make a motion to table the approve ordinance, blah, 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 or amended ordinance 467. What is that?
We didn't know what the ordinance was gonna be. That was the thing, was that we weren't gonna put an ordinance together if y'all didn't approve the schedule.
Yeah, but keep in mind, if you're gonna do this, you need to put it in the paper that you're proposing.
So we will, hold on, let's just go ahead and get through this. So I have a motion to table item C to take action to approve a new ordinance and to approve and to amend ordinance 467. Do I have a second? And we have a second by Councilman Huerta. Um, do we have any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll go ahead and move with a vote. Place one,
Yeah.
place two, place three,
Yes.
place four,
Yes.
place five. Motion carries to table item C. Mr. Bain, go ahead, sir.
There was reference to having to publish proposed changes in city services fees. Mr. City Attorney, would you comment on that? Because frankly, I've never seen or heard of it before.
The city increases, do we have to publish that in the paper?
In
Or is that-
advance
or is
of
that just a
adoption by
practice?
the
Or is that just a
council.
city practice?
I think what I'm aware of is that you do need to publish your approved budget once it's been approved. But I don't know about the
It's always practice, right?
Well, I mean, it might be something that was done in the past. It wasn't done last year. I don't know if it's a statute, because I know that the tax rate has to be published. I don't know about the rates, but I'll have, Epi, can you look into that to see? And if so, we can go ahead and, put it in the paper as soon as possible. We're going to move on to item D, discuss, consider, and approve the Cyber Fund interlocal agreement with the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool for cyber liability and data breach response coverage. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the cyber fund interlocal agreement with TML.
I have a motion by Councilman Falcon. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Alvaro. And we are moved to discussion. I'll let you go ahead and explain this real quick.
What this basically is, it's something brand new, rolling out from TML. In the past, they just kind of put it as part of their package deal, but because cybersecurity has become so important and has become more, and cyber attacks have become more frequently, they decided to sort of get an interlocal so that coverage can be applied properly. It's just something TML is rolling out. It basically, if we want to be covered for cyber attacks, we have to basically be part of, sign the interlocal and be part of the program like that.
And they do the training, right, correct, Sam?
Yeah,
They'll come in and do the training?
no, we did the training already. They basically give us an avenue to do training. So we actually, that time we shut down, I incorporated cybersecurity training on that too. So all of our employees are cybersecurity. It's all partner.
I think there's not free for this, is there, Sam?
Yes, it's an increase.
It's on page 4.
So you'll see that the previous contribution is, it's on page 404. Previous contribution was 247, well, I think we're on the core, so we're actually $175. So it'll go up to 1,000 for the annual contribution.
That's in the budget already.
Yes. Well, there's wiggle room for it. It wasn't specifically added to the budget for this, but there's wiggle room in the technology sort of fund for that stuff, in general fund. Yeah,
So you have it in the budget under general fund?
yes, it's in there somewhere. We can move it around.
Should that,
I mean, it should be a line item like for cybersecurity or something like that, but that's something that we have to kind of, like, once the budget's sort of settled, we'll be able to go in there and figure out, okay, these line items never been used, or this is the wrong verbiage for this type of line item. We need to be more specific with this stuff. That's when the real work starts to come into play. But yeah, that'll be able, this will be able to track this a little better.
When you get that intro training, that's where you come in and just like line item everything.
Right.
You need more
So
questions?
that's what it is, a contribution, 1,000?
Right.
For 500?
Right, or if we do the Core Plus, but Core Plus is,
For $1 million.
no, for $1 million, yeah,
1250.
right. You either want the $500 coverage or you want the $1 million coverage.
500,000.
I'm sorry, $500,000 coverage. That's for the 1,000, but for just, for $250 more, we'll get the
Might as well get
million.
the million.
Right. That was gonna be my suggestion.
Yes.
I think, and part of the things that we discussed as a budget was to start putting a little bit more money, which goes into the general fund for technology at City Hall. So one of the things that we had talked about is, kind of doing some things at City Hall to kind of catch up with some technology, and that's where this money would be allocated under. So,
I'd like to amend my motion to put plus. Would that be good?
Yeah.
Core plus.
okay. So I have an amended motion by Councilman Falcon to approve the Cyber Fund interlocal agreement with Core Plus with the Texas Municipal League interlocal risk pool and cyber liability and data breach response coverage. Is there a second? And a second by Councilman Alvaro. If there isn't any more discussion, we'll do a vote. Place 1, place 2, place 3,
Yes.
place 4,
Yes.
place 5. Motion passes. Item E, discuss, consider, and approve blocking Humphreys and Klein Avenue for the Halloween in the Park event in October and Christmas in the Park in December to provide more safety for event attendees. I have a motion.
Who wants it?
Well, we can't go into discussion until we have a motion, so.
You can. Robert's rule doesn't say.
So every year, the Odom Events Association, along with Economic Development, host a Halloween in the park and trunk or treat, as well as a Christmas in the park where Santa comes, and we also do the gift giving. We also have the parade that night, and it's my understanding that in order to block city streets, it has to be approved by the council. So that's why it's on here. So we can be able to block.
EDC requesting this? Y'all requesting this?
No, it would be the Odom Events Association that hosts the event. The EDC if we partner up with the city through the EDC, or the city partners up with the Odom Events to have these events for the community. So, do I have a motion?
Why would
No.
we go on that far? I mean, we had a meeting with EDC and I think we asked Sal if he was willing to take on some of these projects. He said he's not ready yet, but he's willing to do the next one. So would you be ready for the Christmas one?
What are we talking about as far as?
Helping
To
out,
take-
city's helping out.
Oh, yeah, right. Yes, I mean, I think the Christmas, I mean, as far as I could tell from looking at past events, it seems a little less daunting than the Halloween one. Plus, there's more time.
Are you talking about organizing the event
that's the question.
and the
That's
volunteers to do the event?
No. But what I was saying, my question was at that meeting was, what's the involvement of the city in those events? In the sense that in the sense of partnering. So you have various organizations, because the events are great, right? They're great for the community. They bring in people from out of town to spend money and spend time here. It serves the economic development purpose also. So those are the two major events. So my question at that time, because there's not really anything policy, and that's part of the reason some of this is on here, was that what's my authority, as to how much does the city get involved, and when EDC is involved, is that the city getting involved? Those sort of questions. Because I mean, if the council's okay with it, I don't mind that that of course, we want to prep the park up, want to make sure it's nice and clean. If if the council was okay with it during working hours, do we want maintenance to help, put up lights or trees in the park? That sort of stuff. Like I just wasn't sure about that.
Well, I've always said from the very beginning, and I think that we actually have some of the volunteers here. Um, if we have volunteers that are willing to do this work, and it's not going to cost the city, and the city employees don't have to be spending time decorating Christmas trees or decorating the park or getting, a haunted house ready, because that takes, days to get done. I don't want to be spending city money on these types of projects when we have a group of volunteers that has been doing it now for about 4 years now. And it doesn't cost the city anything to go out there and make the park look nice for Christmas, to get the haunted house put together for the kids. So is that what you were asking? If Sal's
Yeah.
willing to organize this?
Well, it's always been economic development that has hosted these projects.
Hold on,
No,
wait,
you said
I'm
No.
gonna have to object.
You said all
Well,
of the events.
let's go back on track. We just voted just to close the street. We ain't voted by nothing else. So I make
Right,
my
but the
motion.
thing
I
about
do
it
it.
is that he never put who wants it closed.
Yeah, but,
Is it
we
the
can-
city? Is it
I can make a
EDC?
motion to
Is it-
whoever is to come up to the city council for approval.
Okay.
Like, if it's EDC or
Or whoever-
OEA
whoever
or
does it.
Lions Club or
Yeah.
the band. The band's gonna have to do it too. I think the band does something for Christmas, don't they?
Yes.
So that's, I guess.
Well, they have to
you're
do the
giving-
homecoming.
And homecoming.
They do
Yeah,
the
so I guess you're
homecoming
getting
thing,
ahead of
so
all
they have
Yeah,
to
they would come and do that. So I'm with you.
So, well, make the motion. I didn't make a motion.
I make a motion that we go ahead and block the Humphrey Street and Klein Avenue for Halloween in the park and for Christmas in the park for the organization that's gonna
do.
do it.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilman Falcon. I'm sorry, a motion by Councilman Huerta to approve blocking Humphreys and Klein Avenue for the Halloween and Christmas festivals. Second by Councilman Falcon. If there's no more discussion, we'll move with a vote. Place one,
Yes.
place two,
Yes.
place three,
Yes.
place four,
Yes.
place five.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item F, discuss, consider adopting a policy waiving park and other city facility rental fees for events that serve the community and or enhance the local economy. Do I have a motion? So there is no motion. Item, the item dies. Is that correct, Abby? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not understanding what the reluctance is. We've had a very positive impact in the last 3 years that I know of for sure with these two events, regardless of who is the one that is taking the event to the extreme, and it's been Odom events. When you say Odom Economic Group is the one that's creating it, it is not Odom Economic Group. It is Odom Economic Group that has helped financially to make these things happen. But it seems like there's a reluctance to get a motion started, to get, anything that's going. What is the reluctance from the council of our community to continue with these great events that have had such a positive impact on our community? That's what I don't understand. Nobody wants to give a motion for D, then y'all decided to do a motion for E, then y'all decided to, without naming the organization, which it should, because then you're gonna come back at your next meeting, oh, well, nobody ever said the name, because that's what y'all been doing for the last 4 meetings. Nothing has ever been decided. So I don't understand why there is so much reluctance on something that has such a positive impact on our community, for our community.
It's that, because we don't have policies for this. and we have a new city administrator, he didn't know his bounds. He don't know if he can say, yes, way that, no, we can't do that. He don't have no road to go by. Am I correct, Sal?
Right.
Mayor, you already
And-
talked about that, Mayor.
And
Yeah. Sorry, Dad. Yeah, I think that, and I understand your concern.
We're all for it.
I mean, obviously, because the motion dies, we can't really go into too much discussion. But there have been, other, events in the past and, hopefully we'll correct the verbiage or whatever needs to be added in here so we can kind of continue on with our tradition around here. Uh, but at this point, unfortunately, we'll move on to the next topic. But I do understand your concern and frustration.
Can I just say something right quick?
Yes, sir.
I know that you're the owner of Odom.
Well, I'm not the owner, I'm the president of our little
You
association.
created that organization, but it would be a conflict of interest for you to be involved in getting money from EDC and all that.
Oh, I wouldn't do, I wouldn't.
But you have in the
I didn't, well, I did it before I was mayor,
Yeah,
but not since I've been mayor.
Yeah, like, I've been told by other board members of the economic development, that you've gotten money, like $2,000 from EDC, and you buy pizza for everybody. I understand you have your own company that rents tables and chairs, so you create an invoice and bill yourself for $100 for Saturday itself.
I wasn't mayor at the time, but since I've been mayor, I haven't done anything. But since I've been mayor, I've kind of stepped back and, but, I think we need to. Yeah, we need to go ahead and move on. So we're gonna move to item G, discuss. Which one? No, we'll move on to item G. Yeah, we'll move on to item G. Okay. Well, the motion's already died, so we're gonna move on to item G. Discuss and accept the resignation of Mr. Leonard Mejia from the Orem Economic Commission as accepted by the OEDC on September 26th and discuss the plan to fill the vacancy. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Falcon, a second.
I'll second it.
A second by Councilman Dominguez. And discussion. Go ahead, Councilman
Well,
Falcon.
he turned in his resignation about a month ago. So what we're gonna do is solicit people want to be in the EDC. I'm not gonna take it from the state to south, I'll give you applications. Yes.
Okay.
That should be by the next meeting, we'll have some, next, by October.
Oh, yeah, I mean, y'all have to decide like how long do you want to keep that?
We'll do it to, this evening up. You got to put on the agenda. So, 25th? September 25th?
Yeah.
Because that gives them 7 days, to do that, too. September 25th. The deadline is September 25th.
Can I just look at,
Correct that date on this, this is September 26th, you're talking about August.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
oh, sorry, yeah, that's my mistake, sorry. I should have read August.
Hey, you should pay attention, Frank.
Thank you, Constable.
That's it. Details.
So that one will be.
So-
So deadline, the 25th? So any more discussion? So we will be taking letters of interest at City Hall, starting when? Tomorrow?
Well, I would say give me at least to the end of the week so I can announce it and put something together.
Okay.
Get it out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so on Monday?
Sure.
So we'll start taking letters of interest on Monday, September 9th, and the deadline will be September 25th. If there is no more discussion, we'll go ahead and vote on that. Place 1, place 2, place 3, place 4, place 5. Motion carries. And we'll move on to non-action items. Receive an update regarding the finance of a water meter replacement program. I think we discussed that a little bit, but you guys have the proposal. Sal, you want to go ahead and talk about our meeting today? Or Mr. Bain, I guess both of y'all were all both sitting in the meeting.
Okay, well, as previously discussed at prior budget workshops and council meetings, one of the challenges that the city has is charging its customers for the consumption of water. Between last year and this year, some 60 to 80 additional meters no longer read. In the business, they're referred to as dead meters. What happens is that based upon prior consumption, the utility clerk will use an average in order to prepare a bill. All total, you have approximately 200 customers who do not have active meters. This is out of your 1,400 or 1,500 customers. There has been a proposal submitted by a vendor who has done a meter replacement program for various other communities within this area, who is a buy board representative, and a quote or proposal was received back in June, I believe, which indicated that for approximately $760,000, they could undertake a meter replacement program. With a meter replacement program, there is a very high probability of increasing your revenue stream because you're actually measuring what is being consumed. The cost of that would work out to approximately $7.50 per customer if it were to be passed on. We were directed, we being the city administrator and I, were directed to pursue financing alternatives for that $760,000 project. That project proposal was forwarded to Government Capital Corporation. That is an organization that doesn't issue bonds, but more or less private finances projects for small municipalities. I believe some of your vehicles in the past have been financed through the Government Capital Corp. I think there were 2 pickups and a police cruiser and so on and so forth. The rest of those types of purchases were actually financed through Kansas City Bank. We met with, by Zoom, representatives of government finance. And the first thing that they wanted to talk about is, well, okay, what's the financial status of the city? And we spent probably about 45 minutes discussing the past in terms of the most recent audit, the status of your current audit, which is for 2021, as well as hopefully by January or so, having some indication of what your financial position was for 2023, 2024. Hopefully by December or January. When they were asking about what the city's financial condition was or is, they were directed to our budget draft. And as a result of those discussions, they provided a financing statement, which is presented on your screen and I believe has been included in the package, Sal?
This right here? Oh, we got this a little too late.
It's too late, it's not in the packet? It's been
Oh,
handed
yeah, oh,
out?
yeah, okay, yeah, we worked it in.
Been
Never
handed
mind.
out, okay. So based upon the regulations and their policies and things of that nature, when there aren't audits, there are very limited financing alternatives available. One of them that is available is referred to as a small project funding,
Small ticket project.
small ticket,
Yes.
which has a maximum of $250,000 per calendar year. They had come back last week or so with an estimate of an 8-year financing, which is not available to the city because you don't have audits. But because of the way it appears with regards to what you haven't spent this fiscal year, the fiscal year that ends September 30th, you may be able to use some of the funds that have not been spent as a down payment towards the project. That is the $200,000 shown at signing payment of $200,000. I can't tell you sitting here whether or not you can actually make that payment because there's some work that has to be done by city staff to go through the process of looking at your bank statements. There is an issue with regards to the interfund receivables and payables as it pertains to streets and things of that nature. But nonetheless, if it were possible to make a payment before September 30th and then be able to do the small ticket projects come January 1st, you now have $450,000 and you're halfway there. To pay back those things, you have a payment schedule, which for the first tranche, that being the $250,000 for calendar year 24, is $49,000 with an implied rate of 7.4%. They were rather straightforward with that. If not having the audits, cost you probably 1.5% to 2% in your financing. The payback on that is approximately $49,000 a year. If you add into it the 2025 funding, the payback of that is $38,000 for a total payment of $97,000. Plus the $200 down payment gets you to $687,000 total payback, which is $600,000 of your $760,000 project. The financiers know the vendors, and we're going to get with the vendors to see if their proposal can be implemented on a rolling incremental basis. In other words, since they're going to be within the community or within Sanpak County region, that perhaps when they're here working on other systems, they would be able to work on installing your new meter system. Certain aspects of the system have to be installed initially, like the infrastructure, and then you start installing the new meters on a zone basis throughout the city. Keep in mind, from my perspective, your city engineer needs to look at this project. Even though, because it is a buy-board project, they probably have in-house engineers to sign off and meet the statutory requirements that public works projects in excess of $50,000 have an engineer stamp. So I'm not sure how to move forward with this, because one of the things that they were glad to see and appreciative of was the work that was done last year in connection with the adjustments and recognition that you have to pass through your operating cost. That's why if you look at the fee schedule that is a part of last year's budget, it says effective October 1st, all future increases in cost will be passed on to end consumers. That is a fundamental policy of sound financial planning. Based upon the discussions of tonight, I'm afraid we have to go back to them to say that's no longer the policy of the city.
So I think we were discussing also at our last meeting about possibly the EDC helping with a portion of that $200,000. I think that's something that, the EDC can look into and see if they can help with the initial upfront expense.
I've been looking to it, man, I think we could, this infrastructure or something like that, so.
Because it is part of the infrastructure. Okay.
Except for the fact that it is repair and replacement, not new.
It's not equipment,
No,
it's
they,
infrastructure.
yeah, we want people to come into the city, we're getting you New water, what are those pumps?
Yeah.
No, we're getting, so I think I think the EDC will probably.
Okay.
Well, we just gotta convince the other board members, because they have other intentions of using that money, but this is more important right now.
Yeah, sounds good.
And so I'm open to suggestions on how to move forward, not knowing whether or not the previously adopted policies for passing through cost increases is going to continue.
We need to
I
discuss
don't think
policies.
the passing through was the issue. I think what they were saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah, the passing through, whatever.
So that's 7%.
No, I think what they're talking about is, back in the day, I remember Isaac and Jesse would say, we don't want to burden the consumer, it's only 10 cents if they're going up, we'll just do a pass-through. And we did it a few times, but it was only 10 cents, 15 cents. That's the opportunity that we could have gone 25 cents, 50 cents, but we did.
Well, I think that's what happens when you're working with hard numbers versus percentages. Because if they're charging us 7% and we say, well, we're only gonna increase it 10 cents, that 10 cents may not meet the 7%.
Something, yeah.
It may be 1% of the 7%. So then you're in the hole anyway. So looking at hard numbers versus percentage is very different when you're looking at numbers that way. And
Well, the difference was getting paid by the impound. Remember that, Jason? The
I'm
difference in money was getting paid by the impound.
what
We were
difference?
taking out an impound fund to pay for the difference.
Yeah, but I mean, you might want to explain to them what the impound money can be used for. If they're using it to pay the difference of the system fund. Well, legally you can't do it.
Majority of the income money can be used, it can be put into the general fund, it's gonna be earmarked separate.
Yeah, so, so Mr. Manning, I think, I guess we're gonna have to wait on that as well until we have our next meeting.
Part of this process included contemplating the city council deciding whether or not to move forward with maybe this program at the next scheduled meeting.
Well, I think we need to go ahead and have our
Based
meeting.
on your utility system revenues.
Well, if we get EDC money,
We can have an
It doesn't
EDC
matter.
meeting and see how much they're willing to give us.
No.
I think we can give a big chunk.
Well, the EDC funds are one-time monies, and the people who are financing this want to see a stream of money. Just,
I understand that.
just as your sales taxes are going to, and your sales taxes are not probably going to increase when the bypass is built.
No, I understand.
that's 8 years anyway, that's still
We're
8
just
years.
saying, $200 or $300 that EDC gives, that's less financing than we got.
So again, the matching of cost to revenues is not a fundamental part of your process.
So one of the
And
things
that's-
that,
And that's what's difficult.
one of the things that Mr. Bain, I guess, is trying to point out is that when we met with the financier, they wanted to know what our revenue stream is, obviously, right? And so we tried to get them, because obviously we don't have the audits yet. I mean, we're trying to finish 21 still. But one of the things that we discussed with them is that we have a policy in place where we pass through, so when increases come to us, we pass the increases on to the consumer. So we're not always, so our system fund, at some point, we're going to catch up. And that was something that we told them ahead of time. So if that's going to change, then we need to make sure that if that's something that we're not going to continue doing, then obviously we need to we need to let the financier know that that policy is going to change, that it's not going to be an automatic pass through. It's going to have to come through council year in and year out for approval. So And that seems kind of where we are right now, is that we still want to have some more discussion on what it is that what we're going to increase, our system services. Whether it's going to be just the pass-through, or it's going to be the pass-through plus the additional 3% for the previous years, or what. So at this point, Mr. Bain, I think we just need to go ahead and try to do a special call, workshop, or meeting or something to go over the budget again. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know if we have enough time to do
Well,
something on.
you had your public hearing tonight, and I believe you have to set your tax rate within 7 days. That's the reason why you have meetings scheduled for next Tuesday.
Okay. So we might
So
have to do something.
you can't go past, and if you do go past and not adopt a tax rate, you then have to put another notice in the newspaper in order to have a public hearing for that consideration.
So I don't know what.
And so if the cutoff for the newspaper is the Thursday for the week and a half before, you are out of time, except for next week.
Right. So I guess we'll look to see if who's available maybe this weekend, on Saturday. Maybe we can do something on Saturday. Do we have enough time? Huh? You won't be here? So I guess just after the meeting, we'll get with Sal and see who's available on Saturday, and see if we can do something, have a special call meeting on Saturday to go over the budget again. And then if we have to put something, Epi, if you could look, about the posting of the increases. I mean, I agree that it's
Utilities.
okay.
I'll read it to you. It only requires special notice when you're going up on property taxes. Other than that, I mean, and what you would do, let's say council was adopting a budget increasing the property tax, right? And you adopt it. What it says is that at that point, you need to have a cover letter in front of your budget with that word, specific wording saying that property taxes have gone up a certain amount and you're going to raise so much revenue and it's going to be a certain percentage increase.
Okay.
And that's what's required to be as a cover sheet to the, but in this case, it's not applicable because you're not raising property taxes.
The budget cover sheet required by the Truth in Taxation is actually pages 2 of
Yeah.
the budget document. And I've had an opportunity to go back to see what was approved last year. Your posted budget last year includes effective October 1st, all increases charged by Sampat will be passed through to end consumers. And I've also had an opportunity to go to the budget worksheet and show what that amount was, which was 7.1%. And to that amount, after discussions and presentations, that amount of 7% was raised to 10% to achieve the balanced budget. If we take that 3% out of the cost increase, we need to find $44,000 in order to balance the utility system budget. That's the impact of the 3% difference between the Sampat water rate increase and the 10% that was proposed.
I would say.
So that 44,000 can be pulled out of anywhere, right?
Of the utility system.
We can't take it like, say,
Keep in mind, as it stands, your utility system, which has been in a deficit for many, many years, is actually partially funded by your garbage revenues. As drafted, it was budgeted with $38,000 of the budgeted garbage revenues. In total, the garbage revenues were contributing to the general fund $136,000. But instead of the proposed 6%, it's my understanding that it's only going to be the 4%, which the vendor is passing through to you. So if we change that 6% to 4%, that costs another $10,000. So we take that out, we do this, the 126,880. Oh, oops, I'll do minus, excuse me. So all total, making those changes from 10% to 7%, from 6% to 4%, means we need to go find $52,000.
So these will be discussions that we'll have at the meeting,
So
for the,
it sounds to me like we would have to meet this Saturday. And if we are gonna meet this Saturday, then I would need to post, like tonight. I gotta post it up tonight, especially if you wanna meet like at 9.
I'm good for
Wednesday, Thursday,
You guys told.
You
got
got
Wednesday,
tomorrow.
You got
Wednesday,
tomorrow.
Thursday, or Friday,
Tomorrow,
Friday.
Wednesday, Thursday,
Okay.
Friday.
If it's Saturday night,
Yeah, you got till
No, Saturday morning.
Saturday morning, but you can do it tomorrow.
tomorrow morning. Yeah, okay.
My
Yeah.
only concern is as soon as I walk in the office, I get pulled. So
I should be good.
I mean, if y'all are good for Saturday at 9, are y'all,
I mean, I know I am.
I am.
you know, you said you'll be out. I think it has to happen this Saturday, doesn't it?
what is it at this point? I'm not
I
sure.
mean, right now, the discussion is they want to go over all the increases and discuss the types of increases. Not so much the pass through, right? It's just the amount of the pass through they want to hash out.
And the fees.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right, and
And
the
the
fees,
fees.
and the fees too.
It should be pretty quick.
All right, sounds good to me. I'm good.
So Saturday
Uh,
at 9.
Saturday at 9.
I have to check with my boss, but I think so.
This is a workshop.
We're also gonna
Well,
discuss,
I might suggest it's more than a workshop.
Okay.
You're so close to the end. If you make a decision and the fact that things that are decided are then decided in the opposite direction, you're better off having it as a council meeting and making resolutions so that you know what to do in your next step. Just as you and I talked about whether or not on this fee schedule situation, because it's fluid. In reality, the fee schedules can be changed at any time during the year.
Well, we have a meeting, we have another meeting on the 10th.
Yes, scheduled.
Next
So
Tuesday,
he-
next Tuesday.
Next
so he
Tuesday.
wants B, just put it this way, he wants B in there and C on the next, on Tuesday meeting. That's all.
Saturday's meeting.
We can do it Saturday at the,
Well, no, I don't think, what
he
he just
wants
said.
B because we gotta discuss it and vote on it. And we don't need no adjustment. We got one, we got majority.
Well, he's adding, aren't you adding that code enforcer in there that you didn't add? To the budget?
No,
No.
No?
I think right now what we can do as a code enforcer is we can either designate our city administrator to take on that responsibility, or we can see if one of our maintenance guys can be, kind of, because ultimately when we file it with the court, I mean, it'll be the city administrator that files it with the court anyway. But our maintenance guys can go and leave the warnings and all that stuff. We can designate one of our maintenance guys to go and leave the notices.
I just need some clarification. So obviously, there's a workshop to discuss the fees and the schedule itself as a total. But you're wanting to have a regular meeting to approve the budget, or that's gonna be back on the 10th?
I can do that same day.
October, because October the 1st is a Tuesday. So you want to get it done before then, right? Or no?
At least 2 weeks prior to that date.
So you're gonna.
We gotta have to
special
talk
call?
to the tax
So
assessor
you have to have a
collector.
special call?
Yeah, well, we have a special call next week on Tuesday. So,
We can do it for all that.
mhm.
Well,
Yeah,
So we
Stay
can
long
still,
We have to Saturday.
we can still discuss it. And I think Mr. Bain kind of just showed us what the numbers will be by taking out the additional,
3%.
the 3% and the additional, what is it, 2%. And how that's gonna affect the overall budget. It's just a matter of, where are we gonna come up with the 44? So I think just take some time to look over the budget this week and come up with some ideas. If that's something that you wanna consider, is just do the pass-through. See where we can come up with some ideas on where we can kind of cut that 44,000 or 52,000, you said? 52,000 from somewhere else.
So this is just a workshop for Saturday, right?
Can you
So
pull
make
out
sure-
last year's increases? Mike?
Say what?
Can you pull out last year's increases? What they were?
Pull out last year's.
Did they go up last year, the last 2 years?
Yeah,
No, they
last
went
year
up
we went up.
Last year.
Okay.
I don't know about the year before.
Okay, Yes, but I asked workshop, he said, no, what should it be, special call meeting?
I encourage it to be a special call so that you can make decisions
Are you all okay with a special call meeting
on Saturday.
for Saturday to make decisions?
And this is
No.
just the-
Let's do a workshop.
It's a workshop.
So-
And so if the tax rate is not adopted, and it can only be adopted after the budget is adopted, if the tax rate is not adopted then next Tuesday, then you start over with your public hearings and notification processes.
Okay,
Based upon that, I don't know that you can meet the tax office deadline.
okay.
So on the tenth, let's just say everything goes well on Saturday. So we already have the special call meeting on the tenth. In order, can they approve the budget with the fees and then the next line item is approved, well, obviously
Yeah.
approve it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say that Tuesday.
Okay.
There's no issues with the tax.
No.
Other than it has to follow the budget.
Sounds good. So we're gonna go and move on to the next item.
Should we continue the dialogue to try and find a way of beginning a media program?
That being said,
Okay.
If you guys have if anybody in the council has any questions throughout the week, please call Sal, please call Mr. Bain, get on the phone with them so, we can hash this out on Saturday and have some good discussion and hopefully get a lot of this taken care of. Item 5, staff reports. The city administrator is going to kind of receive an update on a previous report on the title status of certain city vehicles. At one point, one of our lenders kind of gave us some misinformation. So Sal, I'll let you explain it since you spoke to them.
First, just to know the other vehicles that were surplus, we couldn't find the original title, so there's 2 of them, so we're gonna go as far as new ones for those last 2 items. So yes, basically that information that was given to us through KS Bank initially was presented as a lien, and there was some speculation about whether it was at the time it was speculated it was a lien against borrowing money against owned vehicles. And so whenever I presented that to council, I did say it was something we look into, and I think it turned into something else. So the minutes went on, I committed to the council and to the community, and I'm no longer going to report on anything that doesn't have a conclusion. There's not going to be any mid-reports and stuff like that, so that way there's no more confusion. There's clear on what happened, and in this case, those liens were not actual liens. So the way the bank explained it to me after I kind of had to push, and it took about a month to finally get someone on the phone, was that these were the original loans. The way they're presented in the bank world is that they're called liens, no matter what they are, if they're the initial loan to buy the vehicle. So these vehicles were not used as collateral to borrow more money. Does anyone have any more questions about that?
No, I think Councilman Huerta had actually made that reference because I think he was around when these vehicles.
Right.
So I'm glad that you were able to resolve that because there was some concern. So
Yeah.
it was
And
there was
again-
some concern whether those vehicles
Were those financing ever approved by council?
oh,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
So again, I want to make sure it's
It
clear.
was 2 different times.
Yeah, it was 2 different times, 2
First
different
vehicles and then-
administrations.
A third vehicle with equipment.
Correct.
Yeah, that's why it seemed like if somebody got a loan, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm glad you got that resolved and I appreciate you coming back and correcting that. And obviously, in the future, we just have to make sure that we understand what because their lingo, even like when I talk to Mr. Bain, sometimes he talks to me and it's like, it's like talk like normal to me. So sometimes their lingo, we can misconstrue that information, but I appreciate you coming back and letting us know and updating us on that. So we're going to move forward. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we.
I have a motion from Councilman Alvaro to adjourn, second by Councilman Huerta. Meeting's adjourned.
8:54.